Good morning. And I say that intentionally to all of you. Good morning. It's a good morning when you wake up and you have a purpose in life. Despite the pain, despite the disappointment, we are here together. And I don't know if it's words of wisdom for you, but I have some reminders because I have talked this over in my own mind and with a good friend in person this morning, a new friend. And we can rise above without giving up. This is not defeat. This is not the end of joy. This is, I think, a sad realization that the majority of people around us knew what they were getting or didn't care, and they asked for more of it. We have now elected to the US presidency someone who is wholly unfit for office, who is danger to others and himself, but most importantly, who has advocated for and plans to install a form of government that is immunicable, which I think I just pronounced correctly, which is poisonous to democracy. And that might not be something I should be smiling about, but let me explain. This is what happens. This is what happens after the US Supreme Court in January of 2010 decided to, in a split decision, 5-4, decided to allow unlimited amounts of money to flood into our election system. It even goes back to the Buckley versus Vallejo decision when money in campaigns or in the electioneering process and advocacy for candidates process was equated with speech. This is where we are, because I want to make absolutely clear Donald Trump is president because he was bought and paid for. And it doesn't matter whether it was Vladimir Putin or Peter Thiel or Elon Musk. Our presidency is and has been for years in our government, and we know this. We know the influence of money in politics, and we know that there are some people, the multi-billionaires, who just want more for themselves and who also believe that they have better ideas for how to run things. That's where we are. And there's two answers to this. I've got several things to say about this. One thing to say is, well, good luck. That's what Elie Mystal kind of said. Like, this time around, he's your guy. Go at it. See if he can do it, right? Well, the flip side of that, of course, I think Wajahat Ali, our neurodivergent friend, responded to Elie Mystal last night by saying, well, think about the people who are vulnerable, people who have to leave the country, people who may be rounded up and deported. What about them? And my answer is, what about us? I sound like Pink. But what about us? This gives us purpose, but this has always been the world. We can choose how we want to step into this situation, whether we define this as a revitalization of the resistance, or you just define this as helping others who are more vulnerable than yourselves, because it actually feeds your soul, because it gives you joy. And I'm going to make this point. You may say, well, this is a lot worse. And I invite you to think about the globe and to think about all the children across the globe who live in poverty. And we have always compartmentalized our lives and said, well, I can't do everything, but I can handle maybe what's around me. Or for people who are lawyers, what do we learn? We learn we have clients. Now, when you are a lawyer, you represent your client, you advocate for them. And if you don't like who they are or what they stand for, you don't have to represent them. So I implore you now to think about rising above our own disappointment and pain and thinking for a moment about your short life here on this planet and whatever spiritual reserves you have, whether you believe in a higher power or you just believe in the power of us. Whether you believe in the devil, which I don't, or you just believe that people can themselves be forces of evil, decide. Choose your fight and choose what is outside of your control, which is so much, but choose where you want to engage. I am at this place where I gave a lot of thinking, of course, and I'm sure you are. When I woke this time, I went to sleep knowing that he was going to win. That's not what happened in 2016. I'm disappointed because I really misread the signs in our society. I was wrong. I thought she would crush him. I thought I put up my states on the map, but this isn't a game. There is way too much power behind the attack ads. For example, my heart breaks that Ohio no longer has Sherrod Brown as one of their senators. But there was tens of millions. I don't even know how much money was spent in attack ads lying about him. Here in Michigan, and I have not looked to see if Elisa Slotkin has gotten the seat in the Senate yet. But I was here throughout these ads that were just utter lies about her. And it just over and over and over again, people hear that. And the reality is, some people believe that they won't be the one. It won't be them or their relatives who gets hauled away when and if Donald Trump sets up this plan to do deportation. Now, I got something else to say to you. And this is, again, I'm not doing Pollyanna. I'm telling you, don't let them crush you. Don't let this change who you fundamentally are. Maybe it opens your eyes, but like I said, there's plenty of good things and work we can do. And the first thing is listening to each other, have these conversations. Ask a friend, how are they doing? This is a very hard day. I'm not teaching today. I gave my students assignments well in advance that they would be doing in groups. And we will have, I think, we're going to have some makeup classes, so it will all line up. But I did this because I knew no matter what happened. Remember, I thought Kamala Harris was going to win, and I thought it wouldn't be appropriate for me. I'd be filled with joy, what have you, or for the students to be in a situation where some of them would be devastated, even if I believe I wouldn't have made the choice they made. And come to find out, this is yet another crushing repeat of how we felt on the morning after in 2016. And I'm really glad that I am not there, because I'm not in a position to teach law at the moment, but I will be soon. And that gives me this pivot. That gives me this pivot. And I see you. I see my friends. You are here, and I see, yes, misogyny plus racism plus Putin won. It's all of it. It's hard for me to say, and you heard me last night if you were watching Nerd Avengers, that I didn't realize how much people hated women, including women. So now we know. Now you know. Now what do you do? We can't change yesterday. And I'm not saying it's our job to try to change and engage so much tomorrow. But I will say this, and this is where I will go. Donald Trump is a fascist. The people who want him in power, including the Peter Thiels of the world and the Elon Musk, and a lot of people, a good chunk of the people who voted for him, want fascism. They think it sounds nifty. That's what they want. And it seems like a big flaw in philosophically and logically in democracy, that given that we have a democracy and we let people choose, people can also choose via the democratic process that that's not what they want. So I can't change yesterday, but what I can say, and I will quote Winston Churchill, and it's hard to say this because, Donald Trump talked about the enemy within, and many of us may fall into that category. But here's what I'll tell you. And I mean this when I speak of this. I mean fighting in a legal and in a strategic sense. I don't mean with weapons, just be clear. So I will read this. And I think this helps me. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend in the air. Sorry. We shall fight. Yeah, we shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated and starving, that our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, will carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to rescue and the liberation of the old. So that speech seemed so powerful at the time when Churchill delivered it. And you may say, well, yeah, Winston, it's easy for you to say because the Nazis never occupied England. You may say that, my friends. Yes, you of course know that England was bombed. And I think I may have mentioned my paternal great-grandfather happened to be there during the bombing. And he was at a Vauxhall automobile factory. He actually helped make the Churchill tank. We've talked about this. But you may say, oh, Winston Churchill can be all bold, but England was never occupied. Oh, no, my friends, I bet you don't know this. I bet you maybe don't know that the Channel Islands, which are in the English Channel, that's why they're called the Channel Islands, and they reside between England or the whole sort of, I don't want to say the UK because it's sort of historically geographically, it's geographically inaccurate, but because it's part of, it's not the islands are not actually part of the UK. I'll explain in a second, but you have the Isle of Man, you have Jersey, and you have Guernsey. Those islands right there were occupied by the Nazis. Occupied. I visited in June of 22 the Isle of Jersey for my tax research because it's an incredibly huge tax haven despite its little tiny size and obscurity in most people's minds. And they have they have on the Channel Islands, right, on Jersey where I was. And it's Jersey, by the way, just like New Jersey. This is old Jersey. So on the Isle of Jersey, one of the things that people go visit, a tourist attraction, my friends, are the Nazi war tunnels. I kid you not. And I was meeting with someone, a source, and I had some time to kill. And I when I first got to Jersey, and you can fly in this little puddle jumper from Heathrow. When I first got to Jersey, I asked, the Uber driver, and I asked other people that I saw, what's one of the things you must see here? And there were several different things like walking around the cliffs and seeing some of the old ruins. I did that with this new friend I met, this source. And however, the number one thing people said, go see the Nazi war tunnels. So I, nice Jewish girl, thought, okay, I'll go see these Nazi war tunnels. I know about this. It's not going to upset me. So I take an Uber there because it was quite a, and there's a reason why I'm going to say that, quite a hike, maybe a couple miles. And I wanted to be there on time, even though it was a beautiful day, because I had to get back in time to meet the source. So I get there, and that experience utterly rocked me. But these Nazi war tunnels, these were tunnels built underground to have munitions in there for the Nazis who occupied Jersey. And it was also a place where they had hospitals, like army hospitals for the Nazis underneath. And the point of this exhibit, you would think, is to let people understand. I mean, I would think it would be to denounce the Nazis and say never again. But my friends, what sickened me, what was incredibly difficult, is you get in there. I mean, first you come in and they give you like a little, when you've seen these things maybe at the Holocaust Museum, this little passport that will have, say that you, as if you were a prisoner or something of war. So let me just be clear before I tell you about the tour. Jersey was occupied during World War II, and Winston Churchill abandoned Jersey. Why? Because he didn't actually want to fight on that island. It's so close to France, and it is it's really close to Saint-Malo, so it's not a place that he wanted to actually engage. So they let the Channel Islands go. And what happens next, and there's some films that are made about this, is neighbors turned against neighbors, right? Sometimes there were people, well, first of all, they let some people leave the island and leave. But Jewish families were rounded up. It's the same old story you hear. There were people in the resistance who were ratted out by their neighbors and deported to concentration camps. One of the islands, I'm forgetting the name of it, actually had a prison camp. Okay, so I go into this Nazi war tunnel. And again, for people joining us, I'm kind of giving you some perspective here about what it is to be occupied. And how Churchill talked a big game, and people think, well, England wasn't occupied. Well, these are called these islands are part of the British Crown. They're a little bit the way you might think about the island of Puerto Rico, where it has a connection to the mainland, but a little bit different. Anyway, so we have these islands, and England was supposed to defend them, didn't let them go to the Nazis. So I'm in the Nazi war tunnel again, where they had these the hospitals there, and they had munitions and things. I'm underground wandering around. It's very dark, but they have lights, and it's a narrow kind of walkway, and to the sides are little rooms you can go into, and that's where they have put the exhibits. So I go into one room, and come to find out the purpose of this whole exhibit. You walk around, and there is imagine that you had like a mannequin, right? So it's a mannequin up to the neck, and then there's a TV set where the head would be, and the mannequin is dressed in like a Nazi uniform, and the TV set's playing. You walk over it, and it looks like it's a face of a member of the Nazi party who is occupying the German government. The Nazis here occupying Jersey, and there's a thing saying. There's something saying below, would you buy an ice cream cone? Would you share an ice cream cone with this man? And then there was something else similar to that. And you come to get this creepy feeling that the entire purpose of this whole exhibit is to exonerate the collaborators in Jersey, the collaborators with the Nazis, saying, these Nazis were nice people. They were just hanging out. They called it a model occupation. There's a book called The Model Occupation. We are now occupied by a fascist party, and it was homegrown. I'm not calling them the enemy within. I don't use that language. People here, I will call them collaborators, right? We have friends, well, I wouldn't call them friends. We know neighbors and maybe family members and coworkers and people in our communities who have decided they want to collaborate with a fascist regime by putting it in power. And people will tell all kinds of revisionist history later about what happened here. Now, is it the end of democracy? Well, I mean, we'll see. If Donald Trump does what he says, if he suspends the Constitution on day one, yeah, the Supreme Court has given him all kinds of authority to say that is within the bounds of our system. We shall see. No, the institutions have not held. Some still exist, and the most important institution is us. And so here's where I want to bring this back to why we still have joy. And there's two reasons. It's the one-on-one, and then there's the what we can do. We have people in our lives. We have friends and we have family. And our lives have been occupied for the past 9 years, essentially, worried about this person coming into office and the damage it will do. And it has fractured a lot of us. But, I would say we have real relationships to tend to. I think some of those got re-nurtured when we had to be around each other so closely without many outside distractions during COVID. We have to choose how we're going to treat each other one-on-one, the kinds of people we are going to be in the world, while we also recognize at the same time that, some people decide to collaborate with this regime. But at the end of the day, if you work in an emergency room and you are, a doctor, or if you are an Uber driver, or if you are an elementary school teacher, or if you are waiting tables, or if you are a customer in any of those situations, we can choose how we behave one-on-one with each other. Because that fabric, having that, is nourishing, it creates joy, and that is always and has always been our humanity. There has never been a perfect time in this country. If you lived during the era of slavery, you may have been an enslaved person. What would that have been? You may have been a collaborator with that regime, essentially. We make our choices. We did our best. We left everything on the field. I will not point fingers at anyone. There will be a lot of finger pointing. I'm not doing that. I am rolling up my sleeves and I'm saying, what can we do? And I think job one, what I can do is be honest with you about the situation. We will come here and talk about the news, but it is also, we will not give in to misinformation about what's going on. I am not going to whitewash what's going on, but I'm not going to lose my joy. And I want to share with you, something. It's part of something, being a lawyer, and there's a metaphor for what I'm going to talk about in a second, but I want to share with you something that I worked up with. I wrote a presentation I gave in 2017 and 2018, I believe, shortly after Donald Trump was elected. And I'm going to add this to the stage. I did this presentation in April of 2027 at Sarah Lawrence College. And it was called, as you can see, First, Thank All the Lawyers. And I gave this talk. And obviously the title is a play on the First Hang All the Lawyers from William Shakespeare's play. I think it's from Richard II. And why I was talking about this was there was a tweet that someone wrote here, Zareb Chandri, the American daughter of Muslim immigrants appreciates you. Thank you, Sally. This is Sally Yates, who is the acting attorney general, for not compromising your integrity and values. Remember, she refused to take an unlawful order, and she ended up getting fired when she refused to enforce the first Muslim ban. Now, Shakespeare. I always return to Shakespeare. And I want to tell you, I'm sorry, it wasn't Richard. It was Henry VI, Part 2. This is a play written between 1591 and 1592. Now I said, and we have said, and Kamala Harris said, we won't go back. We're not going back. Well, I'm going to go back to little Shakespeare to share with you some context. Everyone says first thing we should do is kill all the lawyers. You've heard, and let me just, I'm just going to change this. You've heard people say that. Let's hang the lawyers, let's kill the lawyers. And they think it's a really funny lawyer joke, but it's actually the opposite. This line, the first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers, uttered in Henry VI, Part 2. Here's some context. Oh boy. I don't actually, I don't have okay, I took this part out of it. So let me tell you, the context from that play is that the character who uttered those words was talking about the prospect of undermining authority. It was talking about overthrowing the government. And the thing they said they had to do, one thing they wanted to do, the key thing to do was to get rid of the lawyers, because the lawyers would be able to defend people, right? And I think Jack the Butcher was the person who was there. This is the name of a character. And the point of this is, hold on a second. Just want to get the full context. So the context is, and let me just give you, the first quote is, "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." And this is, I'm going to give you the full text. You have, there's a guy named Jack Cade, and he's sort of in conversation with these two other people. And I want to read you this so you can understand. Here we go, a little Shakespeare. Jack Cade says, "Valiant I am." And someone named Smith says, "A must needs, for beggary is valiant." And then Dick says aside, "No question of that, for I have seen him whipped 3 market days together." And then Jack Cade says, "I fear neither sword nor fire." Smith aside says, "He need not fear the sword, for his coat is of proof." And then basically insulting, him for being a beggar and the clothing he wears. Then Dick aside says, "But methinks he should stand in fear of fire, being burnt in the hand for stealing sheep." And then Jack Cade says, this is Jack the Butcher, he says, he's talking about anarchy. And he says, "Be brave then, for your captain is brave and vows reformation. There shall be in England 7 halfpenny loaves sold for a penny." Ah, interesting. 7 halfpenny loaves sold for a penny. He's talking about fighting inflation, this promise, right? "The 3-hooped pot shall have 10 hoops, and I will make it felony to drink small beer. All the realm shall be in common, and in Cheapside shall my palfrey go to grass. And when I am king, as king I will be." And someone shouts, "God save your majesty." And Jack says, "I think, you good people, there shall be no money. All shall eat and drink on my score, and I will apparel them all in one livery, that they may agree like brothers and worship me, their Lord." And then Dick, this other person talking, not in an aside, says to Jack Cade, "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." So what I say to you, a lot of promises been made by Donald Trump, who's basically a vagrant and a thief. I shouldn't say he's a vagrant, but he is a thief, an adjudicated fraudster, rapist. We know all of it. He's made a lot of promises. He's just like Jack Cade. And his supporters say, first thing we do is we hang all the lawyers. Why? Because you cannot put in place a full system of disruption of our democracy without the complicity of lawyers on your side. Lawyers can be the resistance. All of us can choose, because if they and when they come around to try to round neighbors up, don't wait till then. Is there a plan? Do you know someone who is not documented, who may need to be hidden in your home? Don't go around talking to people about this. Have conversations with your family members. Think with your church and your places of worship. What stand will you take? How will you prepare in advance so we're not caught flat-footed? Now, I know this may seem naive, because you're probably thinking, look at Mark Elias, look at all these lawyers. There were all these lawyers in place in case the election was contested. And what good was it? What good was it? Because at the end of the day, doesn't power trump law every day of the week? Not always. I believe the power of our relationships will survive. And I also believe as soon as they can, they are going to try to get Donald Trump out of office. I think J.D. Vance is probably struck a deal with him to give him a full pardon at the federal level. I don't know what's going to happen at the state level in New York and the other states. God knows. I don't know if he's even going to be sentenced on the 26th or not. But the bottom line here is that J.D. Vance wants that job. And he is, of course, being installed by Peter Thiel, who backed his campaign. And the biggest thing we need to fear right now is not the stuff that Donald Trump promised, but it's the oligarchy that they want to put in place and crush unions and return us back to, the early 19th century. So what I would say is find your group. If you're a member of a labor union, this is when you need to organize with them, meet with them. If you're a member of a church or other synagogue or religious community concerned, there is strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers. And if you also can't do that, if you just need to take a break, take a break. But always, always remember your humanity. And I happen to be a very spiritual person. And last night I was saying when Dahlia was on, I'm going to stop helping anyone. Why should I bother? And I thought, no, this feels a lot like we are all living inside of the book of Job, and we are being tested. Because I don't necessarily believe that there's anything beyond this existence, but I know there is this existence. And as my husband, Michael, who maybe is listening, says, what's the bottom line is you can look around and see what everyone else is doing. The bottom line is we have our own relationships with the higher power. For me, that is this notion of God. That is the word that I use. I feel that. I know a lot of people are agnostic or atheists. I don't need to bring religion into this. But it's kind of like when Alice Walker said, what is her God in The Color Purple? I think it was something like the color purple in a field. I encourage you to find joy everywhere and to never give up your humanity and to be able to hold two impossible things at the same time. Two impossible things, at least at the same time. One, that people around us have decided to install and collaborate with a fascist regime, and also to hold that most of us, that there are more of us than them. And even if we are the slight minority of people who wanted our democracy to survive, there is humanity. There is humanity. And I quote Anne Frank to say that I still believe people are good at heart. And I don't say that cynically, knowing what her end was. Because at the end of the day, whether she was rescued or not, if she had not died in Bergen-Belsen, she would not be necessarily alive today. I'm not sure how old she would be, but at some point, again, our life on this earth is finite. Her diary has lived forever. Your works and your deeds will live forever. What you do in the coming year, and honestly, 4 or more or whatever years of our lives, what you do in spite of, not because of the government regimes that are put in place, what you do in spite of that makes you a good person, makes the joy around you come alive. And I encourage you to do something for yourself today that's joyful. Don't lie about what's in front of us. That may be crying. That may be going for a walk. That may be disappearing into a movie with a big box of popcorn. But be with people you love. There will be more work to do. We will have ideas. We have done this before. We know how to organize. I love all of you. I am so grateful. I'm so, so very grateful that you are here. I have not been able to look at the chat in detail, but I know I see new names, and I adore all of you, even if I don't know you, because you have come here to a place for us to be together. And Susan Thompson, I'm seeing your name. I'm seeing all of you. Yes, Kimmy Monica, I too am devastated. I see this. And Lisa Greenwich says, what about Elon? What? He's probably going to get some job in the government. I mean, what am I going to say? Elon Musk has had government contracts for years through his businesses. Here we are. Now, yes, Laura Smith, you say those of us who are disabled are so screwed. What we need now is we can't rely on the systems. If he ends Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, no, we can't help everyone with a GoFundMe. We need to right now look around in our communities. It's not enough, my hypothetical, to say, if someone's being dragged away, could you please house them? No. all of us who either have disabilities hidden or otherwise, or have, or have friends in those situations and family members, we cannot take on every single person in that situation, but this is the time to spend our time building new systems to protect each other. This is like the women who are helping others get to states where abortion is still legal until it is still legal, right? We need to think of, and then there will be other things like medication abortion. We need to think about resistance, not in a way that we can actually think we're ever going to be able to, in the near term, get a government in power that is not authoritarian. We need to ignore that. And we need to find the systems and build them in our communities and find a way. I mean, if they say they're going to cut taxes, I doubt it. But if they are going to cut taxes and cut these systems, I doubt that is going to help any of us. Yes, it is going to increase prices for all of us, but we're going to have to figure out ways to live better in community and help each other. That's the way it is. There's no other way. And we need to think and plan for that future. That is what's coming. And now I've got some ideas about that, but I want to hear from you as well. I'm going to now go to the bottom of the chat, and I want to see. Yeah, I see this. Yep, he is going to pull out of NATO. This is what's going to become of Social Security and SSDI. Guess what? A lot of people in Florida who voted for him are going to be very surprised when they find out. Guys, this is time to watch, time to take care of yourself, time to think. There's a lot of time now between now and January 20th to have conversations, to process this devastating news, and to think about how to build community in a different way. This is not the old United States that we knew, and it's not been for a while, but what do they say? For a little bit and then all at once. All at once. I remember when Donald Trump was elected in 2016, and it reminded me of a movie I had just seen, a documentary about the Dust Bowl. And in this documentary, it's like, because you're watching it, that the Dust Bowl is coming. And there are people who have, what they're doing, with their crops and how they're depleting the soil. And we know the story, and it's on its way, the Dust Bowl. And when he was elected, I felt the earth literally or figuratively shift under my feet. I knew that we were in for an entire earthquake of a change. And I thought for a moment when Biden was elected in 2020, that would be different. But the minute Donald Trump kept denying that he had lost, and the Republican Party did not walk away from him then, I thought it might be over. And I had this hope. I really believed that we were ready to turn the page. Now, this is where we are now, but we have each other. I adore all of you. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. That's what they want. Have your eyes open. My attitude is, I'm not scared. I'm sad. I'll find my own joy. I'll have community. My attitude is, you broke it, you bought it. Good luck, people, with this fascist regime. And the people of the world watching this across the globe, especially Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine, he knows what's going to happen now. And I don't know what to tell you beyond love each other. We will get through this. It's just not going to be the way you want it to look, but there will be surprises along the way. It's nothing we've been before. I would say buckle up. I would say, don't point the fingers. You can point, there are people say, oh, it's a corporate news media. It's, last night, Merrick Garland, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Channeling fear. Anger is a surface emotion. Our fear and our worry and our inability to think, to plan or know what's next. Don't turn that into anger. We need to find that inner peace. build connections, build community, and we will get through this. This is a nation of more than what, 300 million people? We have a huge number of us who can just arch our eyebrows and say, good luck. You build that wall that you're talking about. You say you're going to bring down prices, go at it. You say everything is going to be, basically, bowl full of cherries. It's all going to come up, roses for us. Good luck. Good luck, you guys. It's on you. While you do your fascist government, I'm going to be thinking about ways to protect people, just like I always did, defend people, teach students, and be a better person. And I hope that you can find that in you. Anyhow, I love all of you, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. And I'm going to ask you, I know the live chat will be posted up with the show. But after that, you can also comment below. I would like to engage with you here below, every day, instead of having to use a community space on YouTube. After the show, thank you, Elias Green. After the show, if you have questions or comments or worries, and you want to ask them or do that, please comment below. I'm also thinking about some strategy sessions where we can get together in smaller groups. But for now, let's just grieve. Let's just love our friends. Let's go for walks. Let's be healthy. Nothing self-destructive. It will be okay. It's not, it's, what, my last metaphor, it's like you did this. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I had this happen once. You go into a movie theater and you get your popcorn and your Cokes or whatever, and you say, you don't know which theater to go to, and you ask someone, and you walk in and you sit down and you watch the credits roll, and all of a sudden a movie starts and it's not actually the one that you bought a ticket for. That's where we are. We did not buy a ticket for this movie, and it's going to play anyway. And they've told us in the trailer that it's kind of a horror movie or a war movie, but we don't know much. And I got to tell you, the story is not over. Now, of course, when that happens, you leave the movie theater and go find your actual movie. This time, this is the movie. You didn't buy the ticket. Here you are. Close your eyes for the scary parts. And when it's over, and it will be over, when you go out and the sun, the beautiful sun, is brighter than you ever imagined, please squint. Please squint and put on some shades, because our future will be brighter when we leave the equivalent of these Nazi war tunnels. Love you guys.